Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of our AI Declassified series. This time it's called the Jurassic Park problem, which is going in further into our movie theme for this series. So I'm delighted to be joined by Saurav Chopra, who's the founder and CEO of 5Mins. And I'm James Francis, the head of growth marketing. I'm here. So, yeah, great to be here with you, Saurav.
Great to be here, James, and thanks everyone for joining.
Great. So during today's session, we're going to show you, interestingly, how not to use AI, which is a very different approach to what you'll usually see. And we'll show you the 7 mistakes that even daily users can make, and most importantly, how you can avoid that. So we'll just give everyone a few minutes to join. But whilst we do, you'll notice there's a chat there on the right-hand side. So we'd love to know kind of where everyone's calling in from today. It's always interesting to see kind of how you've heard about us in the webinar. So feel free to drop us a message about how you found us and where you're calling from today. Okay, so I reckon we can probably get started. So yeah, just to kick off. So Saurav, would you mind just doing a quick intro to everyone about yourself?
Hi guys, so I'm Saurav. I'm a founder of Finance.ai. Really excited to be here. And just background, so I've been in HR tech space for some time. My previous company is a company called Perkbox, which is one of the leading employee engagement platforms in the UK and Australia, serving over 7,500 companies and 3 million employees. I started 5Minutes because I wanted to bring that same spirit of engagement that we built through Perkbox to learning. We wanted to make learning engaging and fun. We've been early pioneers of AI. We started using AI at 5Minutes before ChatGPT came out, using ChatGPT 2. So we have learned a lot, and we're excited to share with you what we have learned today, as James mentioned about how not to use AI. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. Hopefully, it'll be a productive session for everyone. We'll make it short, sharp, and to share the tips that we've learned, and then over to you for questions.
Great, thanks, Saurav. And just to add there, so Saurav has really embraced AI across 5Mins. So for lots of leaders and CEOs, often using AI means signing up to a few Copilot licenses and then changing their LinkedIn to say that they're a digital transformation leader. So Saurav really kind of fully embraces it. It's so far removed from that. So the whole team uses it for absolutely everything we do, whether that's the product or as a commercial team or helping with follow-up to customers. So we really kind of embraced it, and we really wanted to show you some of the practical ways that we're helping to implement that. So just a quick intro to me. So I joined 5Mins around 6 months ago as the head of growth marketing here. So my background has covered software for the last 10 years and events prior to that. And I've worked for 3 AI-first companies, which, considering how long the tech's been around for, means I've been there kind of really at the very start. So across property, e-commerce, and now within HR tech. So I've kind of been using it very actively within my role. Great. So yeah, sorry, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, so what we are here to do today is really share our learnings about how not to use AI, tips and tricks you can learn from us. Obviously, I know you guys have been in many webinars, and where it's about how you use it, and we have done many of those as well. But we thought we could also share with you how not to use things you should keep in mind. And I think it's really important, because what we find is that you know um, AI tools are obviously brilliant, absolutely brilliant. LLMs are amazing, but they roll out so many amazing features, and they are not the best at telling you what not to do. And so we want to share our learning. So I think, firstly, I think a lot of people seem to use AI like they use Google, right? You go in the search box, and I think the way I've used Google over the last 20 years has not changed. I still go in the search box, at least the Google search product. I still go in the search box, type the same search, and get the results, and that's pretty much it. And that's how obviously Google hides the complexity from us, keeps it in the back end, so it makes life very simple. On the other hand, LLM models are very different. They're constantly releasing new features, and but they don't do a very good job at educating you how to use them. And what we find is that still a ton of people are just using the chat functionality. So there are two things here. One is, as it releases new features, both on the front end and back end, if you're not using them as effectively as possible, you're getting you're not getting the best from the product. And in a lot of cases, you're probably using it the wrong way. So we have to stop using LLMs like we're using Google, and we have to move on to the next level. So here are the 7 things that we're going to talk about today, um, on what you can change and what you can learn from, and improve your overall experience, and then also align it to how you can use it in a secure way in the workplace. So we these are some things we're going to touch upon. We're going to talk about um, the settings, which again most people don't touch, don't understand what's going on there. And by the way, Anthropic, OpenAI, Copilot are releasing new settings every day or every week. So things are happening in the background that you need to know about. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about one of the problems I used to have a lot with LLM until I understood how it actually works. When I would keep trying on the chat, I'd keep doing try again, improve the output, rather than starting a fresh chat. And we'll show you some of that. Then obviously still a lot of people use Claude or OpenAI, ChatGPT on the browser, which frankly I haven't done in the last 6 months. So we're going to talk about what are the things that you can do on the desktop, and then we're going to talk about some of the other functionalities like which allow you to program the AI so it knows you, it has some background about yourself to give you the best output. We're going to talk about how you use a combination of different tools, and then how instead of you thinking about the best prompt to write, you actually can get the AI to write the prompt for you. So those are the 7 areas we're going to touch upon in this short, sharp session, and then we'll open it up to Q&A and answer any questions you have. The key thing here, which I always say when we do these AI sessions, is that look, we're all learning, right? So there's no magic here. There's no domain experts who can sell you long courses for lots of money. No point in doing that. The key is to be curious, keep learning, because this is changing faster than it's ever changed, right? Excel, I don't know how many of you did your Excel course. I don't know when you did it. I haven't done one in 10 years. I can still use Excel very nicely. But in LLM, if I'm not learning how it's changing every month, I'm already behind the curve. So the key here is we share our learnings, we learn together, and hopefully some of you guys can also share your learnings in the chat, later. So let's dive straight in. I assume the audio visual quality is good. You can see what we're presenting. Um, if you cannot, please can you ping us in the chat? And then obviously any questions in the chat as well. If you have any burning questions, ping them right now, and we'll pick it up at the end of the webinar. But yeah, with that, let's get started. Anything else to add from your end, James, before I get started?
Yeah, so I think it would be great kind of if you want to ask questions as we go along, and if we're going too fast, just let us know, and we're very happy to go at the pace that you want.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about the settings panel, and this is something that most of us don't really do. We keep using the tool the same way. So let's talk about what are the things that you can do in settings. So what typically there are 3 kind of settings that you can play with, and it really depends on your context, and they operate in a very similar way across the different tools that we use. So, and I think the 4 most popular tools are ChatGPT from OpenAI, Gemini, Copilot from Microsoft, and Claude. So we are more a Claude users. We are Claude users. We use Claude a lot. So a lot of the examples I show you live or James shows will probably be from Claude, but there is an equivalent, because the one thing these guys are very, very good at, all these LLM models, are that they are very, very good at keeping up with each other. So whatever you see in Claude usually happens in OpenAI a week later or 2 weeks later, and same for Gemini. So we're gonna. So the first principle is the most important from a corporate standpoint is around, actually it's right in the middle, is not letting the model be trained on your data. And that is really, really critical. And I think most people don't understand how to do that. We're going to show you out. The 2 other elements are cross-chat memory and conversation history. So this is more relevant for your corporate context in some cases. And the way we are writing this is really from a corporate context, because in some cases you do not want corporate conversation history. You do not want cross-chat memory. Cross-chat memory effectively means it carries your memory from one chat to another. It can be very good in certain situations. It may not be so good in other situations. So we are presenting this to you from a more of a corporate context, um, and what do you need in a corporate environment. So let me show my screen very quickly here, and I show you quickly how it's done in Claude, and there is equivalent in Chat GPT and Gemini and Copilot as well. But at least the key thing is that bear this in mind, keep this in mind. So let me share my screen very quickly. So
And just
go ahead, sorry,
as well as
James.
showing his screen there. So just a note with this that, as you mentioned, we'll show you with Claude, and we've got some examples and some kind of instructions on how you can change that across all the LLMs. So we'll share the slides afterwards, so you've got that. But one of the best things you can actually do is to ask whatever AI platform you have, how do I turn off this setting? And it will write those instructions for you. So that's always an option to take too.
That's exactly right. And thank you for pointing that out, James. So the when in doubt, with LLMs, what is great is you can ask the LLM the question and it will answer it for you. So here's my settings box. As you can see, there's a lot of settings here. So the most important here is the privacy one. So as you can see, I have turned off help improve Claude. So this is a very subtle way of Anthropic asking me, can I use all your data to train my models? These guys are very clever. They do it in a very subtle and nice manner. Help improve, very, very careful copy, which actually encourages you to go make this blue, but I encourage you not to make it blue because they're actually helping you less, helping themselves more. So that's where you can stop it from training your model. Then you can see there are memory preferences. So again, you can have memory preferences here where you can decide, okay, my preferences are turned on because for me, cross chat memory is important. In your case, whatever from a corporate context, if you wanna, you can just turn it off. And I'm also moving between tools, so sometimes I'm using the memory from one tool and moving into another. But there's a ton of settings out here. As you start using the desktop version, you will see that you can change and turn off. Now, I'm a very, very hyper user. So for me, some certain settings are on and certain settings are not required. The other thing which is really, really interesting, and this has made the portability of these tools very powerful, is that you can actually export data from this. So a lot of companies. So let's say if you're using Claude, and Cloud is becoming very expensive right now. I'm definitely feeling the pain in the costs going on. But say I wanted to move from Claude to ChatGPT, I could Gemini, I could export the data, upload it into the other model, and it'll get trained automatically. So the more here is play around with the settings and see what's out there. If you don't know something, as James said, just ask the LLM, how do I do this, right? But keep that in the back of your mind because that's going to be super helpful for you.
Yeah. So this
Let's go to. Oh, that's right, James.
Yeah, so I say this is a really important setting to make sure you've turned it off because you're effectively giving all of your competitors this information. You could be potentially releasing sensitive information, especially if you're in an HR or a compliance role. So it's really important to turn that off. And then just one quick thing I wanted to quickly cover here is called the shadow IT risk, or bring your own AI, as it's otherwise known. So typically what will happen is if a company is reluctant to use AI, this doesn't stop teams from using it. People will happily pay for their own licenses to AI platforms in order to advance within their roles. So I think it's really important as an organization that you're aware of this to make sure that you actually control it all yourself. You have the strict settings. You tell everyone how to use it efficiently because people are going to use it either way. So you just want to make sure that you're in control from the start.
Yeah, and thanks for pointing that out, James. And I think let's go back to the stage again, James, so we can let's talk about the point two. And again, just remember one thing that compared to other tools, where we don't really focus on settings, it's super critical you focus on settings in LLMs. I don't know when I last looked at settings for Excel or my Teams or Outlook, but this is super critical. So let's move on to the point two, which is this is a mistake I used to make a lot, which is that you're in a prompt, you get a bad answer. First of all, you don't prompt well, right? So you're not giving it enough context. So you get the bad output, and then you keep trying, saying, "Hey, try again, try again." Oh, be more specific. Worse answer. And then your answers just degrade, and they get worse and worse and worse, right? And the reason they don't improve is because of uh, this whole notion of what we call the context rot. So what happens is that every chat uses a certain number of tokens, right? But the first 100 tokens that you're using in a chat are the highest performing tokens. The last 100 tokens that you're using are actually really, really badly performing because it's an exponential decay in terms of output for the same 100 tokens. And that's just how LLM models work. So it's called context rot. And so what happens is you're in a very, very, very long chat. It started off initially with a bad prompt. Your output is going to degrade, degrade, degrade. So at one point, if it stops working for you, the best thing you can do is really start a new chat. I know it's frustrating, so but there's no way about around it. If you want to get a better output, you should start a new chat. And because these are probabilistic models, what happens is that the output you will get out of the new chat will not be the same as the output you'd get from the previous chat because it's redoing the whole thing and reworking the things that you're asking it to in a probabilistic manner. So the context rot means that long, 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 long chats where your output is degrading is not going to get any better. But if you start a new chat, it'll be a little bit more time, but your output will be much, much better. So keep that in mind. And I know I made this mistake for the longest time till I actually understood, oh, there is something called the context rot, which again was an aha moment for me. So that's what we would recommend. Obviously, ideally, you want to be you want to have a very good prompt right in the beginning. And then James is going to share his secret tip on prompting, which we all use in the team. And so if you start off with that, perhaps you don't have to do long chats. But in the worst case, if you did not, then just go back and don't keep, going down that rabbit hole. As they say in business terms, we call it the sunk cost. Forget your sunk cost, start again. So that's point number two to bear in mind. Moving on to, we'll go on quickly to point three. So, and I've seen this in a lot of my interactions, is that a lot of people are still using the browser version of these LLMs. So I'm going to show you very quickly, what my setup looks like. And so I'm going to share my screen again. So again, we're going to do more, from an Anthropic standpoint, but exactly all the other tools mirror this as well. So if I show you my setup one more time, I'm going to switch to my screen again. So I showed you my settings before. Now, I've been using for the last 6 months, as I said, I've not used the browser website for Claude.ai. This is my setup. So as you can see, oops, sorry, we've got three tabs. There's a chat, there's co-work, and there's Claude Code. So basically, this is how I use Claude Code less because I'm coding less. Co-work, chat is what we use. And these are the three things that we use. And I always use the desktop version because that's where the richest capabilities are for the LLMs. For those who are not using the desktop version, please use the desktop version in your organization. The way I do it for chat, co-work, and code is that chat for me is what I think would be tasks that have lowest number of tokens. It'll be not as complex. It's got less tokens that are going to be used. Co-work is where I see long, long, long activities. I want long information dense things that need to be done, and that's where I use co-work. And where's much, much more intense work that needs to be done. And then finally, what I also use is the browser extension. Now, this is really, really magical. So for example, this is a Claude browser extension. So you can see here, you download it. That's my browser extension. And this does some really, really cool things. And for example, for this call, I was like, okay, just summarize the front page of the FT for me. And I loaded up the FT. I had the browser extension. I said, hey, sorry, I've got a typo here. Can you summarize today's news on the FT for me? And boom, it does it. And it's also very good when you're doing form filling. And so, I could go to a website and say, hey, can you just fill out this form based on my data? And obviously, if you have programmed it right, if it got your details, it'll use that. So the message here is that, if you're using just the website, you're just really using a demo version of these LLMs. And you got to move to the next level where you have to start using all the capabilities in the desktop app. The other thing which is really exciting about the desktop app, which for some of you more advanced users, you'd probably benefit from is, sorry, I'm just going to pull up my desktop again. It's somewhere disappeared somewhere around. Let me see because of my screen share. But one of the things that the desktop version you can do is you can also connect your connectors. And these connectors could be connectors into your Gmail or your Google Drive and so on and so forth. And so with the desktop version, it provides those connectors that make life a lot easier if you want to do some more automated activities. So those are the kind of three things that I want to talk about. I'm going to hand over to James. So James can then talk about the remaining tips that we have. So James, over to you.
Brilliant, thanks, Saurav. So one of the tips we have is that you should never start from cold. So if you go in straight with a conversation with ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, it will start off as if it almost doesn't know you, and it results in a very generic output. So we call this the average of the internet because all of these AI have access to everything within the internet, and it results in a very generic, plain result. So what you can do to help improve this is you can create either a custom GPT if you've got ChatGPT, or you can use a skill which we use within Claude. So these help to really result in consistently higher outputs. So I'd recommend creating these, especially for tasks where you've got certain areas where you're constantly repeating similar work. So I'm just going to show you an example within Claude for something that we're doing here at 5mins. Great, so that should be showing now. So I'll show you some examples here. So we've got lots of different skills for almost everything, and I'll show you a couple we put together. So as a good example of this, we've recently created a new blog template on the 5 minute site, which I can just show you quickly now. So typically with writing blog articles or any form of content marketing, it would require a lot of research. You'd have to create images using a graphic designer. You'd have to do work within AI SEO or SEO to get it there. So it would take a long time to put all of this content together with an example here. So rather than us needing to manually write it or hire website developers, which could be really expensive to get something like this together, instead we simply use Claude and Claude skills to help produce this. So I've got an example here for a content marketing generator skill. And the way in which we create these is you ask Claude or your AI platform, if it's a custom GPT, is basically what should I do to create this? So as an example here, so I said like acting as a HubSpot expert, help me create a new skill. Here's lots of resources that we want to do for this. So we've got an SEO guide, we've got an example of landing pages that we like. And then we say, before getting started, ask me questions about how to do this. So this is where your expertise will come through to help really improve this. So Claude came back, it asked me lots of questions in a lot of detail. So I gave it all the answers to this, exactly what I wanted. And then it was able to create a new skill. So I'll skip right to the bottom. And it creates this called a content marketing generator skill. So what this can do is I have a simple output which says, write me a blog article on this topic, and it will deeply research the topic. It will look at the top keywords to use for SEO. It will use our tone of voice from examples that we've had. And then it will even generate the HTML code, which I just copy and paste and put straight on the landing page. So this results in a consistently great output every time. And I've given you a marketing example there, but you can use it for absolutely everything. So you've already got some kind of great resources available. So rather than starting from scratch, create a skill, give it the best output, and then you can produce consistently great results every time. You're on mute, sorry.
Saying, James, what I find fascinating is the fact that Claude and all these LLMs are actually can help you build skills, which is really, really exciting because you can just ask, hey, Claude, help me build a skill, and ask me all the questions you need to ask. And if you open it up, and that's when they really build some amazing things. So, I have personally used it to build my LinkedIn voice. So I've fed in all my LinkedIn posts that I used to write and say, hey, help me build a skill in my LinkedIn tone of voice. And it becomes highly, highly personalized, and it gives me ideas and insights on some of my posts that I want to write, but it's already trained in my data, and it built it so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a huge, huge difference. And it saves us so much time too. So as part of the previous webinar, we calculated it saves around 20 hours per week. And over the course of a whole year, it just saves a huge amount of time. It has like a really big input and delivers like brilliant results compared to just that kind of standard average of the internet response that you usually get.
Yeah, and I was going to say another example I can think of from an HR standpoint is that, let's say job descriptions. So you're probably doing this already. Instead of starting the job description from scratch, you can put in some of your old job descriptions and say, hey, here are 20 job descriptions, attach them, upload them, and say, based on these job descriptions, can you help me create a job description skill? Next time you're hiring a marketing manager or a product manager or HR business partner, you can say, hey, create a job description for HR business partner based on the job description skill. Done. and it'll be highly tailored to you.
Yeah, it makes things really simple. Great. So the next mistake is picking one AI platform and deciding this is the best one for me. So these platforms are evolving ridiculously quickly. And I think during the last 6 months, if you look at all of the top benchmarks, OpenAI with ChatGPT was the best performing platform. Then it was Gemini with Google. And then most recently, it's been Anthropic with Claude. So they're constantly changing position. And again, they all have different use cases. So we typically use Claude for our regular work. We use Perplexity for anything research related, Gemini for images, and then we use a tool called Manus, which is owned by Meta for any like agentic tasks or any like repeatable work. So I'd say the most important thing with picking an AI platform is to remain tool agnostic. So none of these will remain as the best tool for any period of time overall. And there will always be specific tools that are better for particular use cases. So be really open to it. And the best thing to do with all of these is just to get started, to try out different ones and just see what are the best ones for your particular task that you're doing. So I'll skip over that one. Just quick interlude with a word of warning. So what you may have noticed, but the models will always sound the same, even when they're wrong. So they have a huge amount of confidence with their answers, and this is known as being a hallucination, where the information is correct and it's passing this off to be the truth. So there's been some big cases of examples where AI has gone wrong. So there's been cases with large consultancies producing hallucinated content that was leading their clients in the wrong direction. You've had lawyers that have used AI where it's made up example cases, and lawyers have even been struck off for providing factually incorrect information. So it's really, really important to check what you're doing, especially if you're doing anything in a legal capacity. So yeah, definitely make sure to do that. Um, and yeah, just kind of verify what you're doing. And then there's something called the sycophancy trap. So Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, has kind of come out and said that ChatGPT is a platform that particularly struggles with this. So it seems to be very, very agreeable as a platform. And regardless of what you say, even if it's absolutely wrong, the AI platform will continuously say, that's a great idea, it's brilliant, you should definitely do that, even if actually it could result in you making a very poor decision. So ChatGPT actually had to recall one of their previous models which they rolled out because the tone of voice made it actually very difficult for people to do what they needed to do. And the platforms are getting better at this. So as they roll out, it's becoming less and less prominent. But one of the things you can do is to frame a question of saying, is this a good idea? So actually ask the AI platform, what's wrong with the idea? Could I make any changes? How could we improve this? And then that stops it from falling into that same trap and being a yes man. So you can pick up those issues.
Absolutely. And I think it's like almost like a child trying to make you happy the whole time, right? That's what they are trained in. But if you ask the open-ended question, they are very, very good at responding the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure never to lead with a leading question, and actually ask for the truth. So you can put that specifically into your prompts to make sure you get the best output possible. And then, yeah, as Saurav mentioned, one of the other warnings is context rot. So you'll notice the start of the conversation is really strong, and then as it gets longer, the output becomes worse and worse. So even if it seems difficult, start a new chat, and you get a much better result there. So the next tip is stop trying to be a prompt engineer. So when the AI platforms all came out, we were all told you need to be prompt engineers, you need to know how to write this. And it's important to know how to be able to write good prompts. And there's a good kind of like a few frameworks that you can use to help do that. However, AI is much better at writing prompts than we are. So what I would say is a good way to do this, especially if you've got a more complicated task, is to ask AI, help me to write a prompt that will get me to do this really well. And the part that really improves this is you say, ask me clarifying questions before you write this. So you're the expert. You're the expert in your area. You've got lots of context about how your business works and the years they've got into this. So you understand exactly what you're looking for, whereas the AI platform might not necessarily have that information. So if you feed in all of that information, you will get a much better result there.
I think one of the things that what I found fascinating is that, I have some 30, 40 page prompts now. And some I was showing to someone and they were like, "Oh wow, you must know how to write prompts, some such detailed, granular prompts." I was like, "No, Claude wrote them for me." But I was just very careful of, be giving them the right answer when that Q&A was taking place. And then the next thing which I did was I asked Claude to help me write a prompt. Claude helped me write a prompt. Then I applied that prompt on a real problem. And then I looked at the output and I asked Claude to improve the output. And then I went back to Claude and said, "Hey, based on the recommendations I have given you to improve this output, how will you improve the prompt?" So I went through a couple of recursive loops. So again, if you take that example of simple example of a job description, you create that job description skill and you're asking Claude, "Hey, write me a job description for HR business partner at ABC organization." You get that output, you correct that job description, you feed that back into Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT and say, "Hey, based on the improvements that I have made, how would you change the skill or the prompt?" Then it's that second, it's that behavioral feedback. We do it in one-on-one conversations, in reviews, but that's exactly what it needs. So if you do that 2 or 3 times, that's how I ended up getting a 40-page prompt, and I was blown away. I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing." So let it write first, test that prompt on an output, correct the output if you think it's not perfect, and then feed it back to the AI to say, "Hey, please help me improve that prompt." I know it's a recursive exercise, it takes a little bit of time, but once you put that little bit of extra effort in, and those extra 5, 10 minutes, the output you would get would be just mind blowing because, like anything else, it needs feedback.
Yeah, absolutely makes a huge difference. So we've got an example here of a prompt that you could write. So rather than saying write me an outline for a webinar, or write me a job description, or write me a LinkedIn post, you want to be really more specific. So to say help me write a prompt for a great webinar outline, and then ask me questions one at a time. So it will ask questions around what could the topic be. It will have lots of different context around what you've been working on recently, and it can make suggestions for that. It can ask you questions about how long it should be, whether or not you need help with slides, and that's when you get like a really good response. So this is something we did for the slides here. Is we had a really good idea about exactly what we wanted to do for the webinar. So we fed this in with a kind of a guidance initially, and then said ask me questions. So exactly how it should look, the length of it, what images to use, and then that's kind of how we ended up kind of creating the slides for today. So it gets a much better output. And then the final mistake is shipping the first draft. So it can be really tempting, especially when you are pushed for time, to ship the first draft for what AI sends you. But I think really the important thing is to edit the initial prompt. So if you put something in to start off with, and the output hasn't been great. So as an example, there could be too many bullet points. You could be missing certain examples in your answer that you would have really liked to have seen. So rather than going back, rather than sending within that same chat and saying, add in these different things and make these different changes, actually go back and change your initial prompt and say, this is what we want to add in. So don't overuse bullet points. I want an example around this that you should definitely include. You should use this tone of voice or this particular skill that we've created already, and see how the output improves. So what a kind of another good tip with that is sometimes actually delete their previous conversation. So you'll end up with kind of context rot because you've got like lots of kind of additional information that's competing with it, or context poisoning, as that's actually known. So you result in a much like worse response. So if you delete that previous response, start again, you get a much better result. Um, So yeah, I'll skip over that one just for time here. So we've got a few. So that's the 7 things we wanted to cover there, and then we've got small 6 habits that compound. So these are things you can do in addition to all of those AI tips of how not to use it, and this makes a huge difference for us. So Saurav actually introduced me to voice mode. So there's lots of different tools like Whisper or VoiceSync that you can use for this. And I use VoiceSync because you pay about £30 as a one-off, and it saves a huge amount of time. So I believe that it's roughly like 5 times faster to use your voice than it is to type. So it saves you huge amounts of time. So every single day, I'm saving anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour that I can put back into all my other work. just by using this. So you'll notice with some of the prompts, they're very text heavy. You're going back and forth between different ones. So it makes a huge difference and saves you a lot of time. Um, if you paste your calendar in, so anything with the context helps too. So you can use connectors to link the AI platform to your existing tools, and it helps provide all of that content. So you could provide your Google Drive folders, your calendar, anything else that provides additional context, and you'll see your results that massively improve if you're doing that. The next one is end with what am I missing? So we don't know what we don't know. And by asking that, your AI platform will be able to say, actually think about it from this angle, or you could be missing this. And that will massively help your results too. Um, Using temporary chats is really key. So ideally, especially if you're within an HR role, you'll want to have a separate chat, which is just for your team, because you don't want everyone to be able to see your previous history. Almost the same way as in a Slack group, you wouldn't want to just invite everyone in. The one thing I would say is if you don't want people within the same account to see anything, is to use temporary chats. So anything around redundancies, offer letters and contracts, or anything particularly sensitive, use that temporary chat so that it's private and no one else can see the context of that. The next one is you can use an auditor stress test. So you say, explain this back as if you were the auditor. So it will go through in a lot of detail, really tear apart your answers, and then you can go through and refine your output to get a much better result. And the final one is you can have a one keyboard shortcut. So on your keyboard, you can assign the platform to work just based on a single button. So it pops up and then you can just use it instantly. So rather than trying to find different tabs, you can make it available and it makes things much faster. But now with Chrome extensions and it's integrated with almost every tech tool that you have already, it's almost not needed because it's there at a click of a button already.
I could definitely do with number six. As you saw, I was looking for my, Cloud Code desktop. So no, thank you for sharing those. It's definitely I could definitely
Yeah,
benefit from those as well.
yeah, great. Do you want to cover this one, Sarah?
Yeah, so basically, I think obviously we've given you the tips. Again, we're all, as I said earlier, we're always learning. We're always, how things are changing. Things are changing really, really fast. So I think the key is to stay curious, keep checking your settings. Maybe there's a new one there that you don't know about. Maybe check it every 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And obviously, we don't rely on just one model. I know it can become expensive if you have to pay for premium subscriptions to all of them. I think one way you can do it, and I know some people do it, is that they pick a primary model which they use heavily, and then all of them have free versions. So what you can do is pay for a primary model, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or whatnot, and then use a free version of some of the other models on a more sporadic basis, and you can get the output of one model checked by another, so the cost doesn't blow up, and at the same time you're getting the best output. So I think that would be from tips from our end. Obviously we also want to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about 5minutes.ai, those who are not familiar with 5minutes.ai. So I'm just going to take one quick a minute. Let's keep going. James, we're going to one quick minute on what 5minutes AI is. So 5minutes AI is essentially an AI powered TikTok style learning management platform and learning experience platform. And we cover everything from compliance training to leadership development and AI training, role based upskilling in bite sized chunks that you can fit into your busy schedule 5 minutes a day. If you want to imagine how our product looks like, it literally is TikTok meets Duolingo, as we call it. You can fit learning in your busy schedules on Slack, on the app, and on the desktop. And we have customers in about 80 plus countries. So we're a global platform, and we're very, very early adopters of AI. We started building 5minutes.ai when it was GPT-2. Now, before ChatGPT came out, there was a Google product called GPT-2, and and AI is completely embedded into our product. So for those who do not work with us, we'd love to give you free access to our platform. Especially for HR colleagues and compliance colleagues, you can get free access to our platform to have a play. And there's a lot of AI training on our platform as well. Some of the tips we have shared with you are also available as micro lessons on our platform that we would, love to share with you. So, and then we're very, very excited to share with you that we released a new a new feature on our platform called the AI Studio. So those who are already familiar with us and know what we do, we want to give you a very sneak peek of a new feature we released, which is called the AI Studio, which basically takes your content, your documents, your assets, and then using the power of AI converts that into bite-sized video courses. So, James, if you can please play that video very quickly. It's a 1 minute, 30-second video. We'd love to show you and tell you more about how we've been innovating in this market.
Great, yeah, sounds good. I'll just share that one now. Yeah, it's something we're very, very excited about.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So, obviously, for those who know us, this is our new feature called the AI Studio, which automatically takes your content, converts exciting bite-sized videos from it, and you can also run role plays. So previously, we have this massive library of 20,000 lessons that covers everything from compliance training to leadership development. But now we're giving the power in your hands to actually take your content and also convert it into exciting bite-sized videos or role plays. So that was a little, obviously, quick marketing spiel from our standpoint. Here's the link to our free trial. I've just posted in the chat. You can just sign up here and get free access to the system, have a play around. And yeah, that's basically it from our side. We'd love to answer any questions. And over to you guys. Any questions whatsoever, any tips you want to share, please share with us, share with the community, or any problems you're running into. We'd love to share best how we've solved that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to hear kind of what's of all the ones we mentioned today. What's that one habit that you've seen that you'd love to kill? That maybe it's a mistake you're making previously, or a way you hadn't really thought about hearing AI. We'd love to hear that in the chat too. Yeah. So, sorry, what would you say is the biggest habit that made the biggest difference to your life, kind of using AI and to your role?
For me, I think two things I would say is using voice.
Yeah.
Um, Voice is a fantastic. And then the thing is that obviously a lot of these tools have, you have Google that also has voice, but what these tools do, like VoiceSync and the others, they actually you can use it cross-platform, and the voice recognition has improved so much that it just saves so much time. Especially when you're at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I'm just tired, I can't type. It still gets the job done much faster for you. So voice is a big factor. The Chrome extension from Claude, and I'm sure the other tools have the same, is a game changer. Um, and it makes a massive difference from productivity standpoint. Those are the two areas that I find fascinating, and it's only getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's made a huge difference. My biggest one would be around context, Rod. So this is
Mhm.
something I hadn't even heard of. I assumed that AI platforms had consistently great results and it was always the same. And I'd often noticed that as conversations got longer, the outputs got worse, but I had no idea what was causing that. I thought it might just be that it was a particular time of day that the platforms might be overwhelmed and was giving a worse result. So that was the biggest one by far for me. And then yeah, Jessica's saying in the chat so that she's going to start again more often. So yeah, definitely Jessica, that makes a huge difference. Is that it's starting again rather than trying to push through. John saying I'm definitely going to be asking AI to help me with prompts, and of course using voice rather than typing. Yeah, definitely, John. I think yeah, both there with voice. That's one of my favourites too. Makes a huge difference. And then yeah, asking AI to write prompts is it's always like a strange one. It's not something you would necessarily think of doing, but it results in some great outputs. And then Sarah saying, "I'm going to try. What am I missing?" So yeah, spot on, Sarah. I think that makes a huge difference. We don't know what we don't know, and AI can help almost act as someone that's like an advisor or like an auditor that's properly checking everything that you do, and it's something we wouldn't have access to otherwise. So it makes a huge difference. Great. So yeah, if there does anyone else have any questions just before we wrap up? No, so I think we're all set. So yeah, just final thing to say is thank you very much for everyone that joined the webinar today. I really hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be sharing the slides for this one too, so you can get access to the slides. We'll share the full recording so you can distribute that and share it with your teams. But the final thing, oh sorry.
No, I was going to say we've got a question here. So the
Great.
question is there any way to connect ChatGPT to the workflow, as unlike Gemini, Copilot don't have its own document interface? So yeah, ChatGPT also has connectors. In fact, they were the first connectors to be launched in the market. So you can actually get ChatGPT desktop version or web version. You can connect it to Google Drive, Gmail, and I'm not sure if that's, but it does have some very strong agentic workflows. And again, the best question to ask would be to ask ChatGPT itself: How do you connect? How do I connect you to my workflow? And how do I do X, Y, Z? So you could ask ChatGPT the question: How do I automate my email responses, or how do I connect you to my workflow, and it'll give you the answer. But it has got some very, very good connectors, because still ChatGPT is the biggest in terms of reach. So they have the biggest feature set when it comes to connectors for sure. And most apps are connected to them as well. Claude is also very, very good. So I think it can definitely address the workflow challenge that you may have. Yeah, thanks very much again. And my parting thought would be that, again, lots to learn. I think from my side, humility and curiosity will go a very, very long way in making you very successful with AI. Curiosity, just because you're constantly asking. Humility, because we don't assume we know the answer. And there are better answers out there, regardless of how much experience we may have in an industry or domain. There are potentially better answers out there. So yeah, as long as we stay humble and curious, I think we'll find the answers thanks to these amazing tools. But we just got to know how to use them the right way. Thank you very much, and
Absolutely.
nice to see you all.
And just one thing that John's mentioned there about saying that one day he hopes he'll be able to clap his hands like Tony Stark and speak to Jarvis. I've actually seen that someone's done that already, where they put hand sensors so they can move around their desk on a virtual board using AI. So, John, that's actually happening already. So it's pretty amazing to see what's happening with AI.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
And see you. Actually, before we leave, one more thing. Sorry, we're going to have another webinar on the next. I think it's the next one in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We'll send you all a reminder. The topic is going to be slightly different, and we hope you all can join as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll see you all then. Thanks, everyone.
See you. Bye. Bye.